My name is David, and I'm going to tell you a story about my life from the beginning to the end. And I grew up very angry. I was an angry kid because my earliest memory is the day my father left me. I was about 5 years old. I remember just being at my grandma's house and wanting to be with my dad. And it was just a weird feeling because it was a feeling of going to lose something. My dad left us. I was real angry. And as I was growing up, I started going to, of course, elementary school. In elementary school, I was always getting suspended for fighting or cussing at the teacher, not wanting to be there, giving my mom a lot of problems. My mom already had a lot of problems because she was an alcoholic, and she was constantly in the bars. Once I hit the 7th grade, I decided to make a decision on what I was going to do with my life, and I decided to join a gang. So I decided I was going to earn my way into my neighborhood, and by doing various things, by earning stripes, as we would call it. So I started to do a lot of stealing cars, fighting individuals in school, just to let everybody know I was down. And when I was 12 years old, I went to juvenile hall for my very first time for breaking into a school. And that was my first time of ever being arrested for a crime, more serious crime. And I went to juvenile hall. But as I went to juvenile hall, they released me, just like everyone would say in the past. Like everyone in my neighborhood says, if you ever get locked up, they're gonna let you go. Don't even worry about it. Don't say anything, don't worry. So I continued to live this lifestyle, this chaotic lifestyle, stealing, partying, using drugs, womanizing, just doing whatever I wanted to do. My mom was always gone still. There was nothing changed about me at all. And then I would go on to commit larger crimes for GTAs. I started to get addicted to heavier drugs. I started to, by the age of 15 years old, I already had overdosed twice on PCP. And I remember around 1997, I remember Hope Now for Youth was coming out to Sangers, trying to recruit people and trying to help them and give them some hope. And I remember being in the backyard with me and my 2 friends, and we're getting high, smoking cabbies, drinking beer. I remember being on a park bench and having 3 guns on. Each one of us had a gun, and they're sitting on the park bench in the backyard. And a counselor from Hope Now for Youth came up, and he was trying to recruit us, or recruit me, because it seemed like he already had something going on with my 2 friends. And he came up to me and he offered me a card, similar to this card here, and told me about Hope Now. And I remember looking at it, and he was saying, hope, hope, and I was like, hope what? I told him, look around you, ain't no hope here. And then I remember just looking around when I told him that, and there was the guns, there was the drugs, there was graffiti everywhere. And I remember just ripping up his card and flinging it at him, because I didn't believe what he was saying, because there was no hope. And continue to do crime, to be arrested, to get out, just to live my life. And I remember later on that year, towards the end of that year, I was arrested for 2 assaults with a deadly weapon. After all this time, they locked me up, and I told myself, I'm gonna beat this case like I beat the rest of them. And so I go to juvenile hall, and I remember one night, I was hyper, throwing peanut butter from our late night snacks, and just being hyper. And the counselors goes, go down to your bed. All 4 of you guys, because there was 4 of us, and they sent all 4 of us to the bed. And as we went to our bed, we're still hyper, jumping around in the back. And I remember looking, I seen these Christian people walk to the door. So I become a lawyer, and I tell them, you can't deny us our religious rights. And that's the truth. They couldn't deny my religious rights, so they let me go to this Bible study, right? And it was only us 4 that were in trouble. We're the only ones who went to this Bible study. And we went there, and we sat down, and this guy who was leading the Bible study started telling us about Jesus and what he did for us. And I just remember sitting there and just kind of listening and playing at the same time. And at the end of it, I felt like I believed what he was saying. But it was really weird because I don't know why I believed him. I don't know why I believed what he was telling me. And I remember at the end of it, we all stood up and he prayed. And as we were praying, we hung our head down. And I just remember feeling like I was sorry. I was sorry for everything I've done. I was sorry for getting to shootouts. I was sorry for getting shootouts in front of my mom. I was sorry for doing 211s. I was sorry for beating people up. I was sorry for starting riots. I was sorry. Like I just felt like I made a mess of my life, and I didn't know why. And it broke me down, and I started crying and crying, and I couldn't stop telling God, I'm sorry. And at the end, I remember feeling like I was shaking or something. I remember the guy next to me, one of my friends, he was all like, hey man, are you all right? And I told him, man, I don't even know. I feel like I'm tripping out. And then he looked at me like, yeah, you are tripping out. I remember going to court and sentencing day, and people came to court, and I got convicted of 2 assaults with a deadly weapon, possession of a firearm with 2 strikes. And the judge says to me, "Is there anything that you would like to say for yourself?" And all I can think of was just to give me one more chance. And the judge shook his head and told me he wouldn't be able to do that today because he's given me all the chances that I can have. And he sentenced me to 27 years, 4 months to the California Youth Authority. I remember finally, after 3.5 years, I was nervous, they paroled me. I went home and now I had to face these new challenges on getting a job. I remember going to my parole officer and telling her, "I need help finding a job." And she said, "You're right." I go, "Or else you're gonna lock me up." She goes, "You're right. I'm gonna lock you up if you don't get a job." I said, "Well, help me. You're supposed to help me," because I felt she was being sarcastic with me, so I kind of gave her attitude back. And she gives me a card, and it was Hope Now for Youth card. It was the same card that guy gave me in 1997, 3.5 years earlier. And I remember looking at the card and telling her, "I know this guy." And she goes, "Oh, that's great." And I remember thinking to myself, no, that's not great, because I remember how I treated him. I remember getting a call from John. He was our job developer at the time. He goes, he got a job for me. I applied at a warehouse company, not knowing anything about warehouse work at all. And I didn't know how to drive forklift, sit down, stand up. I didn't know how to do anything. I never even been in a warehouse, but I applied anyway. And I remember doing the interview and telling this man about my skills. And he goes, "You know how to drive forklift?" I said, "No." "You're not even the sit down kind?" I said, "No." He goes, "You ever worked in the warehouse?" I said, "No." And I was real honest, and I even told him I even have felonies. And then finally at the end of the interview, he goes, "Well, at least I can train you the way I want to train you." So I got hired. See, Hope Now for Youth, they have a lot of aspects of their job. Like, it's not just finding you a job. There's a relationship of it. And to build this relationship, they have a Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas dinner. They have like a thing called summer celebration. And we have all these activities going on. And I used to go to them. And one day I went and they had a card on the table saying, "If you want to be a counselor at Hope Now for Youth, fill this card out." So I filled it out. I signed it all and I left it on the table. And I get a call from the executive director. And he says, "Are you still interested in this position?" And I said, "Yes." So it started a year long. It was about a year long, or some year long at least, discipleship, going to this discipleship. And he was teaching us about scriptures, about what to expect on the job and how to counsel. And so I started to pay attention to these things. And there was like 5 of us. And somewhere inside of me knew this is where I'm supposed to be. But at the same time, looking around me, seeing the other people that are applying, I was like, wow, any of us can work here. At the end of it, he hired me on. And it's the greatest thing ever to work here for Hope Now for Youth. To work for Hope Now for Youth means I get to give back to the community, to the youth. And now I have my beautiful wife. I have 2 gorgeous daughters that I love very much. I have a dog, a house, 2 cars, and it's just life is getting better. I work in the great ministry of Hope Now for Youth, helping young men. I remember in my life I always shoot people away from Christ, and now I'm recruiting them back.
Hi, I'm Skin Mead, and I drew from these real-life events to create the characters in the screenplay Finding Hope Now. It really is an amazing story. You can become involved in 3 ways. Number 1, pray. Number 2, send this website to all of your friends. And number 3, become a financial partner. Help us make this movie.